Right, we're at 2 o'clock, and I think we can get started. So you are all very, very welcome to today's session. My name is Louise, and I think we'll have a wave there from Anij. And you'll also be hearing from Linda. I'll give a wave there, Linda, and Lisa, our colleagues who'll be helping in the background. You'll hear their voices later on as well. So let's get started. Maybe for the last time, if you have a phone, please do use it to connect up with what's on the screen. If you open your camera and scan, point it towards the QR code and click on the text, it'll bring you to this page, but it will enable you to put your ideas and thoughts in as we go along. And Anij will share that information in the chat for people who need it later on. Okay, so this workshop is all about movement and living a good life. If we could go to the next slide. And obviously, living a good life is really important for all of us. It's something that means so much to us personally, to those who, to our families, to our friends, to the people who are using the services that we support. And there's so much information out there about what it means to live a good life and what it means to age well. And we know that you lead very, very busy professional and private lives. And oftentimes you don't have time to think about this stuff. So this little workshop is giving you time to refresh what you already know. There's a lot here that you know already, but maybe you haven't had a chance to think about how it applies to your work. And hopefully you learn a little bit more. And very importantly, that by the end of the workshop, you'll have a plan to do something or to try something. And we hope it's a bit of fun as well as we go through. So as I was saying, it's all about the why. Like, why should we be bothered about this whole connection between movement and living a good life? Movement, connection, doing things that matter to us. Why would we be bothered with that? And if we are bothered about it, well, what can we do about it? How can we do things? And today we have people from care at home services, daycare, housing support, and it could be sheltered housing as well. So the different examples we're going to talk about are from these type of services. But when we're talking about an example, if it's not your particular type of service, just think about how you could adapt the idea to where you work, or the philosophy behind it with the people that you know so well, and the type of support that you provide. So let's warm up these fingers of yours using your phone to put towards your ideas, because we do want you to get involved. And we'll just start off with a very simple question, which is on the next slide. And that is, what part of the country are you calling in from? And that's me. I've put in Edinburgh already. So you can type a word and it'll pop up there on the screen. And once a good few people have had a chance to put their thoughts forward, Lisa will be able to give us a bit of a roundup. So if possible, pop it into your phone and it'll come up on the screen in front of us. So what are we seeing there, Lisa?
Apologies, Louise. I got kicked out there. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay.
So what are we seeing? Any
so
any
we've
places?
got Edinburgh still looking like a fairly high number. We've got Glasgow, we have Drumchapel, Irvine, Kirkwall, Port Glasgow. All over, I think. Oh, Forfar, that's near me. I'm in Dundee. Is there anybody from... Oh, yeah, I can see Dundee now. West Lothian. A really high spread, I would say. And the Borders as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
that's really good. It's lovely to see that spread, because, of course, you know, we can be working on our own individual jobs, and we might not have the opportunity to go meet people from other places who are doing similar jobs. So it's a really nice way to come together and share with each other and learn from each other. So that's part and parcel of of this workshop. Okay, well, you've had a good shot at using your phones to put your something forward, and you can see it's all very anonymous, etc. So we'll go on to the next one and ask you another question, because we'd really like you to think about things that bring you joy. What adds meaning and purpose to your life? And it could be a favorite hobby. It could be what gets you up and going. It could be something that gives you a sense of satisfaction. We'd love to see your comments pop up on the screen there, and we'll see what people come up with. And you can answer it a few times as you think it through, because what gets you up and going could be different from something fun you're planning soon. Wow, and we're on to 2 pages of this already, but we'll be able to flick through them and see what people are saying. 3 pages.
4 pages.
Yeah. So Anuj, I think you have the controls there to be able to
oh yeah, sorry.
Flick forward and back and down.
It looks like people are fairly active, doing different types of hobbies and sports, things like running and walking the dog, paddle boarding, which I've never tried and I doubt if I ever will. So that's quite a good spread. Zumba. And there's quite good about the connection that people are enjoying with friends and family. And that's obviously important to some people.
I love cuddling the dogs.
Yeah, definitely. Holidays, I think people are really looking forward to holidays, especially after all this weather we're having. And there's different hobbies that look like they're coming up too, like guitar, crochet, music. So quite a variety of things that people really enjoy doing. And whether it be something they maybe do on their own, or it's having that connection with their family and friends. So a real good mixture of what's important to be. Rugby union, I'm in with that one. Gardening, healthy sports like swimming as well. So yeah, a really good mixture, I think.
Fabulous. Okay, well, that's a really good roundup of that Linda was telling us about all the different things that bring meaning and purpose and joy to your life. And it's interesting, isn't it? You know, when Linda was kind of synopsizing what people were saying there, that they can be gathered in, as she was saying, like family and friends, or hobbies, or getting outdoors, or connecting up with people or places, because those sorts of things that bring you joy, that bring me joy, that bring us joy in our lives and add meaning to our lives, generally are going to be the things that are the same for a lot of human beings, a lot of us, regardless of what age we are. So if these are the things that bring you joy just now, perhaps they'll be the things that bring you joy in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years' time. And the research from other places backs up what you're telling us, what you're saying, that these are all these great things about singing harmonies and crocheting and all those sorts of things, that these are things that give purpose and meaning to life. And if we look at the next slide, we see that there's a couple of things. There's some research from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation saying that actually, if you're provided with support, maybe support to help you get dressed, maybe support to help you eat or have a meal or whatever, or get washed, that people are looking beyond that support and saying, well, does that support give purpose and meaning? It's not just help to get dressed, but dressed to go somewhere or do something or meet people, get outside or accomplish something or be useful. And we're going to meet Alan in a while. He's lives at home, he's 86, and said, well, let's see what I can do to keep me alive and live my life. That was so important to him. It'll be nice to hear from him later. There's a nice picture there about, there was up in Orkney, some folk that we were working with really cottoned on to this building connections and bringing people together. So perhaps if you work in care at home, or if there's a local care home, or if there's a local group, where do people get together and connect up with people and enjoy that companionship and so on? So Anuj, over to you for the next slide. Take us on a wee bit further.
Thanks, Louise. So talking about It's hard when we're talking about care at the moment to not mention the litany of damage that COVID caused. And that's partly why these workshops, these discussions around supporting well-being are so much more important. But it's not just relevant for when we have something like a pandemic on the go. A lot of this damage about decrease in mobility, increase in falls, mood issues, isolation, withdrawal, you can see them happening quite quickly for people when they have a significant adverse health event. It could be like a fall that leads to hospital admission, especially with a prolonged admission. And you can see all of these same things coming into the fore, where our connections are broken a wee bit, our movement's broken a wee bit, we're a little bit deconditioned, and we start to go down this spiral of loss. And that's why it's important to focus on the supporting well-being all the time. But all of this, you've lived through it and suffered, no doubt, both personally and professionally. You've either had that through the pandemic, or you've seen the people you've supported having an adverse health event and deteriorating all of a sudden. But even yourselves, like the person who used to go to pipes and hasn't gone back, and that doesn't have to be the client, that could be the carer, who through the pandemic got out of the habit of doing things that were, community based, and then has never gone back to doing them, even though things have started opening up again. So, but also think of your own parents, your grandparents, your relatives. Have they stopped doing the things that they did usually and haven't gone back to since a health incident? And if not, why not? And what can you do to be supporting them to get back to that? Because here's the thing about activity and activity. Like, did you know that older adults spend nearly 10 hours of their waking day sitting? Now, again, this research was before the pandemic, and we all know that this sedentary behavior, this level of inactivity has actually gone a lot worse since the pandemic, as we've had less connections and we've not connected for long enough, and we've not, like, our world became smaller and never went back to being what our world used to be since the pandemic. So we know the situation is actually worse than it used to be, and the research points to that. So something to think there, though. But why do we care? So we care because there's a lot of research that tells us the harm that comes from inactivity. So if I just pick up one of these, you'll get all these slides in the once they're ready, along with the link of the recording when it's ready. But so I won't go through them all, but if I can just pick one. For example, one of the studies looked at people who spend most of their day sitting, what happens to them? They could tell that at a cellular level, they were older. So the people who were less physically active had cells that were older as compared to people of the same age who were physically active. So there's a massive loss that occurs from inactivity. All of the others, like the things that happened from pandemic, you can very clearly see, like what pandemic caused that I was showing you earlier, and what lack of movement does in terms of loneliness, poor sleep, loss of appetite, poor mental health, and loss of independence. And there's lots of research here around how we're not meeting physical activity guidance. Us as individuals, people working with people experiencing care, and of course, people experiencing care, and the rest of the adult and elderly population. So there's a lot of focus we need to put on getting our bodies and minds going again, because when we are moving less, when we're connecting less, the social isolation and loneliness that comes with it causes very severe harm and reduces our life expectancy and the health and well-being and quality of life that we are experiencing. So, but let's think of it from your perspective. So here's a question for you. How would you feel? So back onto your phones again. How would you feel if you spent most of your day sitting or lying down? And now when we ask these questions to care workers in our workshop, quite often they say, oh, it would be heaven. So I'll ask you to think, 3 weeks have passed. How are you feeling now? And if you need the QR code, here's the QR code again. And I think it's Lisa who's telling us what you're saying, Lisa. Yeah. And I'll try and scroll as you read.
It's really significant, the amount of people who are writing bored and depressed. There's an awful lot. what I'm seeing is that some of the physical symptoms are coming through as now feeling painful and stiff, and all the physical changes. The psychological one of feeling sad, unmotivated, depressed are huge as well. Everybody recognises that feeling. The word trapped, that's such a powerful word as well. Emotionally, some people might be feeling quite useless and not able to contribute to where they are. Lethargic and unloved, that's very powerful too. Lots of really impactful words coming through. And socially isolated, restricted in what they can do. And we've got somebody putting relaxing. That person needs a holiday, whoever you are. You're overworked, booking some time off. So yeah, I think that's everything. But everyone relates to that feeling because a lot of the answers are very similar.
Mm-hmm. Some of them are very powerful, aren't they? Like even things like eager for the day to end, and no purpose. So you can see, angry. And the funny thing is, trapped, useless. And see, what's funny is if you look at, in terms of treatment, our system's also designed to fail us in many ways, because when a client is referred to a GP with these symptoms, painful, stiff, angry, or stress and distress issues, depression, they're usually given strong pain relief, strong antidepressants or anti-anxiety drugs. And unfortunately, most of these medications actually make us more lethargic, make us more drowsy, so make us move even less. So the thing that's creating the problem is compounded even further because we're moving even less now, because our medication is not allowing us to be awake enough, to feel confident enough, to move more. So we actually create a vicious cycle wherein the problem is being treated by something that compounds the problem. And we go into this vicious circle, and the only release out of that, unfortunately, is an acute event. And you will all seen this. People who are very sedentary end up having an acute event like a fall, they break a hip, or a significant similar injury. They end up in a hospital or a long-term admission. And that's the only way they get out of it. And then it depends on what the aftercare, the acute care in the hospital is, and what the aftercare, how good the rehab is as to whether the person breaks through that cycle or whether the cycle just gets worse and deepens. So, but when you go back, finish the workshop, go back and think about how many clients have you got, and is it that their current health issues is what's leading them to have that loss of activity? Or is it simply the fact that they are not having enough opportunities and encouragement to move enough to kind of start to get back to improve their activity levels? And to talk a little bit more about that, I'm going to hand back over to Louise. Thanks a lot for all of your responses.
Wow, I was very struck about all of your responses, all right, and how you would feel if you were spending a lot of time just sitting. And of course, you'll know why we ask the question, because oftentimes the people that you're supporting are spending a lot of time sitting down. And how fantastic to think that you can have an impact on people's health and well-being and their mental health and emotional health by encouraging more movement. So we have in front of you there a thing called a life curve. And weirdly, very, very strange, but this is based on research done by Professor Peter Gore and his colleagues at the University of Newcastle. But we lose, if you look down that list, we lose abilities in a certain order. And hopefully you're up at the top of that life curve. Can you go hiking up a wee hill? Nothing too huge. Can you do some brisk walking where you get a little bit warm? That you breathe a bit deeper? Can you get up off the floor if you drop something under the bed? Can you get in under the bed and get up again? And can you walk for about 15 or 20 minutes? I hope we all can. And if you want to keep doing those things, you'll need to keep doing those things. So if you want to keep being able to walk for 15 or 20 minutes, you'll need to keep walking for 15 or 20 minutes in order to keep being able to do that. And then you can see that you actually lose, if you lose those abilities, you lose the ability to cut your toenails, to do shopping, and to use steps. And once you cannot go up steps, that is really severely limiting for you and your life, because you can't go up a few steps somewhere will, you know, the impact that would have on you. And you can see as you go down the various abilities that you lose over time. Now, interestingly enough, it's not that if you start losing these abilities, you're on the way down and that's you. Because in fact, you can also come up and regain some abilities, or you can maintain where you're at. And that includes whatever age or stage you are in life. Now, one of the ones there is about transferring from a chair or just standing up from a chair. So wherever you are in the country, can I invite you to stand up? Let's all stand up, okay? So up you come, stand up and sit down again. And I'm going to ask you to do that again, to stand up and sit down again. Now, for you, hopefully that's, you know, you don't even have to think about that. But that particular action is phenomenally important to enable people to keep the strength in their legs, to keep being able to stand up, being able to walk, so that they don't lose that strength. And so the more often with the people that you're working with that you can suggest to people to stand up. Now, I've just said to you, come on, stand up and sit down, which is kind of a weird thing to tell people. But, you know, if I was to say to you, oh, come on over here and have a look out the window, you're more likely to stand up. Or, oh, would you mind coming over here and give me a hand with this? You're more likely to stand up. So the more often that you can suggest to people that you're working with that they stand up, the better the person, the more independent the person is going to remain, and we'll come onto all of the benefits of that and so on. And you're helping people maintain where they are in the life curve, or actually come up the life curve. Now, here's Chick, who here's a story of somebody moving on up the life curve. And this is Chick, who was living in Coatbridge. He was getting some care at home. I think he was about 4 times a day, actually, because he was mostly in his bed, and he found it, you know, he was very, you know, there was no really reason for him to get up, and he was feeling really bad about life and himself. He'd come out of hospital, he'd lost a lot of his abilities. And the staff came up with this great idea to try and motivate him to get up, because they ran down and bought these little tokens and got a glass tankard, and every time that Chick stood up, you can see him in the right hand side there, you can see him putting one of the tokens into the tankard. So every time he stood up, he'd put a thing into the token in. And to begin with, you know, he was standing up maybe 5 or 8 times a day with the staff's support. But then he got right into it, because he was wild competitive, and he started, you know, 14, 20, 25. And as you can imagine, because he was standing up, once he was up, he'd start pottering about and doing a wee bit of this and that. And his instead of having 4 visits a day, he was able to drop them to 3 to 2. And one day the staff turned up at the front door and there was no reply. They were very worried, and they eventually tracked him down, and he'd gone into town. He hopped on a bus and went off into town, and he which was fantastic. And that was all through encouraging somebody to start moving a bit more in order to get back to doing the things that they loved. So a small tweak, but and maybe while we're chatting here, you could be thinking about people you're supporting, thinking, oh, there's somebody that might be interested in something like that, small improvements. Okay, so let's get on to, you can see the benefits for Chick there, and these are all the benefits generally in terms of these wonderful things that happen when people move more often every day. So it's not just on a Tuesday when they go off to get their hair cut, it's actually all during the day. If you're supporting somebody at home, encouraging them to move while you're with them, and indeed encouraging them to move when you're not with them by what you say and what you suggest they do. And you can see the bottom right one there about staff satisfaction. You could imagine the staff satisfaction of encouraging Chick to get back on his feet and back out and so on. So it's all of this lovely stuff about focusing more on encouraging people to move each day. So all these good things. Okay, so let's have a listen to Lynn. Lynn is a person who is was receiving care at home. This is a pre-COVID video, and have a listen to what what encouraged Lynn to get up and going and the difference it made. And you'll see that she's using movement sticks, and these are very simple things that anybody can make. Just get a few lolly sticks and write in them. So have a listen to this. It's just coming up just now.
Just a fair warning, the video starts with a very low volume and then it picks up, especially when Lynn's speaking. So you might have to concentrate a little harder at the start of the video, but you'll hopefully be able to still hear it. But we'll also include the links to all of this. So we're hoping to leave all our PowerPoint slides as they are in our improvement program hub, so that in the future you'd be able to connect in and look through all the slides, including all the videos and things like that. But all the videos are already available on our improvement hub. So here we go.
When we first get introduced to the CAPA scheme, I must admit I was a bit sceptical about it, mainly time issues, because obviously we've quite a lot of tasks to do in a certain time, and thinking about how you were going to fit in exercises in along that time, I thought this is never going to work. Anyway, once I introduced Lynn to it, we got the exercises up and running, and where I could pass it on to all the carers. All the lasses have been really good at ensuring Lynn does her exercises and seeing the difference in Lynn.
Since I've been involved, I have felt more confident and more active, and I feel it has helped a lot. I did move about the house, but I use my wheelchair more. But now I don't use my wheelchair as much. I walk more than I did before. Most of the carers will come in and they pick three exercises out my week up.
This is my wee stick jar for Lynn. So obviously Lynn will pick some sticks, maybe 3 every time the carers are in, and the wee exercises are written on the sticks. So this is marching feet. We'll maybe make Lynn march her feet for a couple of seconds or whatever, how long she can do them for.
And they will actually do the exercises with me, which I enjoy, because I feel that it's good that they join in with me to do it and get them fitter as well.
I need to do them a bit more often.
I think I've been doing it about 2 months now, and I feel that I've come on more with them than I was the first time when I started doing them. Like, even if I sit here and there's no carers in and I'm watching the telly, I'll start doing some exercises. More happy in myself, I feel more independent, and I've been able to cut my care visits down, which I feel I've achieved by doing that.
Because she's doing 2 visits a day, she's using a wheelchair less, she's more motivated, she's a happier person, which proves that a wee bit of exercise does go a long way, and I feel she's done really well. I'm really proud of Lynn, and I'm proud of what we've achieved as a company.
I love it. I think it's great. I just smile, and I just love doing them. I think it's great.
Oh, well, thanks, Lynn. And listen, major apologies there for the stuttering video. We did test it this morning and it worked perfectly, but technology, eh? So what was really important there was that you can see Lynn walking around her house and that, and she used to use a wheelchair. And this is 2 months later. So 2 months, she said she started about 2 months using the sticks and so on. And she had also cut down her visits. And she says in the video that she's really pleased. You know, she feels really proud of herself. And she's really happy in herself about this. And also, really nicely, she reckons that when she does the movement sticks, it's good for her and it's good for the care staff as well. So she feels she's contributing to the care staff's health and well-being as well. So I really like that. So now all of those good things that happen when we start moving more often and we stand up more often, we do more during the day, that obviously it really helps us in so many ways. And it also builds our resilience, which is really interesting research out there, that we're better able to recover from illness and we're actually less likely to catch infections because we're stronger and so on. Now, you saw in Lynn's video that particular care service who tried out something new to encourage people to do as much, to do a little bit more movement when they were there on their visits, and just taking 2 or 3 minutes. But we know that wherever you work, you'll be doing so much already to help people keep active, keep connected, and keep doing the things that matter to them. So we'd love to hear from across the country, wherever you are, what do you already do at work to help keep people active and connected? And this is going to pop up on your phones just now. We'd love to hear from you.
I'll drop the QR code again in case you need it.
Well, quite a variety of activities going on here. Things like walking to the shops, drumming, swimming, walking groups, chair exercise, gardening, Zumba again, music and dancing features, and swimming. That's really good activities for people to do. Attending clubs, virtual walks. That's a good idea. Not seen that before. Therapy dog visits. Care about walking, strength and balance. Yeah, I think walking's a really good exercise for people. And if they can make that improvement in that really helps their well-being, doesn't it? Yeah, dancing seems to be quite popular too, and some gardening. Well, horse riding, that's a new one. I haven't seen before. Making films, that's interesting. Vertigo, I don't know what that is, but other people no doubt will. Seated exercises, that's really good. Floor curling, not seen that one before either. That's really good. Join a local peer group. And we've got some other information in the chat about walk up and down 3 flights of stairs twice a day, light housework and dishes, walking for a coffee. So lots of really great ideas for keeping people active and keeping people connected, either to their community or with other people. So that's really good.
I love the simple ones as well, because they are the most practical ones, like just the balloon sorting, so somebody put down balloon sorting, which I think is just absolutely fabulous, because the amount of movement and fun you can generate just with a balloon in a very short space of time is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Good.
But they're still rolling in lots and lots and lots.
Yeah, that's 8 pages of information. That's really good. Gym sessions, that's good. Hockey. I'm not going to ask what Irish Bowls are. I've not heard of that one either. But it sounds really fun.
Fabulous. Thanks very much, Linda. And just to let you know that all of the information that's contained within these slides, you'll also get that as well, in case there's some good ideas that you'd like to connect in with. Okay, so I think it's back to you, Anna, for the next one.
Yes, thank you, Louise. Fabulous, fabulous. So let's tell you a couple of stories that we have heard of and know of the services who've been working with the Care About Physical Activity team and telling us about all the fabulous work they've been doing. So as you can see, some services have managed to create a big difference by simply reconnecting people with their love of their garden and getting them to start using the garden a bit more, doing a few more things in the garden, even just installing a couple of bird feeders that creates more interest in the garden. So, so there's it's a very light activity. Once done, it's done, but it helps build routines, because you have to go and fill the bird feeder for the birds to keep coming to the bird feeder kind of thing. Even if you can't like look after the flower bed, but one simple raised flower bed is, once somebody can make it, is easy to manage, but gives you pleasure on the time, and there is positive responsibility of working with it. But there's lots of other examples that we didn't have photographs of, but I'll share with you. So for example, one of the service did a simple thing where the carer would always ring ahead with a missed call to the next client before they went for their visit. And now that told the client that the carer is just about to come. So by the time the carer would arrive, the client would make their way to the front door so they could open the door and let the carer in, rather than carer using the key safe, for example, to let themselves in. And that added, sneaked in that movement that they wouldn't have otherwise had. And small thing made a big difference. Another service made a simple change where they added a well-being notes section to their record keeping, and added similar to this training on care about physical activity to their induction. And they found such a significant difference in terms of the amount of fabulous well-being related things staff are able to squeeze in during their normal visits. Whereas before they would have staff saying, oh, but I won't find the time and I don't know how to find the time in. But simply because there was those well-being notes in, it just kind of prompted staff to not do more, but just think differently, work differently, and focus a bit differently. And they were able to do a lot of fun stuff, just like getting family to get the right music the person enjoyed, and just putting the music on during the normal visit, but just putting the music on when they came in. And just doing that added movement to the person, dancing a bit more, moving around a bit more. So small things, small sneaky things can make such a huge difference. And services have become so beautifully creative with it. But there's also, the bigger things, so especially, so the one above, for example, is from one of the daycare services in Forfar, who just organized simple outdoor games. So the client group and the staff got together and chose what games they were going to play, what awards they're going to have. So the people attending those care, the daycare clients got the involvement in the planning and then the taking part. And as you can see, like top left, for example, this elderly gentleman's not thinking I walk with a walking frame. He's thinking there's a ball, there's a goal, and I've got to get the ball into the goal. So things that otherwise they would never say they were capable of doing. So when we focus on fun, it can unlock a lot of our potential and take away a lot of our stereotypes that stop us from doing things that allow us to move more and have more in our life. But also the simple things, like if you've seen the photographs downstairs, simply encouraging people to be a bit more independent and do a little bit of, say, if you're there for a meal prep visit, but getting them to maybe put their sugar in, getting them to start getting a small pot so they can start pouring their tea again. So services have come up with a lot of simple ways, and of course bigger ways like the Forfar games, or the Orkney example Louise was sharing earlier with you, where to get people to find ways to add more meaning, purpose, connections, and fun in their life. So a question for you. So this reverses it a wee bit. So as we've been working, Louise and I, with the care services, and we were exploring what do care services feel they can sometimes maybe do, not intentionally, unintentionally, to maybe make people move less. So we thought we'll ask you this question again, like we would do in our workshops in person. So you've got 3 scaling questions from never to always, and think about your service. Does this happen in your service? Like, do you end up using language sometimes that restricts people, like, sit down, Maisie, I'll get that for you? Do we sometimes do things that are convenient for us rather than the client? And do we sometimes end up doing too much for the clients? So think about it. So from never, sometimes, often, or always, between 1 and 4, where do you think your service is? And I think we've got Lisa to analyze this beautiful changing picture.
Yeah, I love watching it rise and fall. I think everybody should be quite heartened because you are closer to the end, which is sometimes rather than always, which I think is fantastic. And it seems to be pretty level across all 3 questions. The lowest one is staff doing behaviours, which makes it easier on staff rather than the person. So that's fantastic. The language is slightly higher than that, but again, you're still sitting in the sometimes, it occasionally happens. And also, again, for offering to do too much for the person when you could take a step back and let them do it themselves. So I'm quite impressed by what I've seen today.
Fabulous, fabulous. And this is something we can, we've quite often find as well that when we are doing workshops with the services, the one that most services end up saying that we could, because this is all about how can we improve the culture in our service so that we are a bit more activity focused and a bit less doing for folk. And that kind of helps prompt the services a bit. And they've all usually also said to us that the one that they want to work the most on is us end up doing too much for the person. So not knowingly, but unknowingly taking that opportunity for independence away from the person, because we are caring people and we work in care. And sometimes it's just, we just get into the habit of doing for folk and not realizing. So a lot of time it's about just reflecting on what do I do? What am I doing with the person? And did I need to do it? Or could the person have done that themselves? You know, so just having that kind of discussion with the staff to regularly reflect on what part of this do I have to do and what part of this could the person do in partnership with me. And some other examples so that, you know, to share with you what sometimes care services might do to encourage people to be inactive. So one is we stop people doing a little, and that's about when we, you know, like, for example, we pull the person's jumper on their arm instead of giving them the opportunity to hold the jumper there and they squeeze their arm through. We put the drink right there instead of giving them the opportunity to stretch to get the drink. So, you know, little things that we end up doing to stop people doing a little because we've just, in a sense, made it far too convenient. And there isn't a need to stretch that far, just the normal movement that you can sneak in. And another one is about overuse of equipment. You know, so a couple of simple examples. One of the ones I would say when I was managing care at home, the common example was, and quite often our manual handling plans were designed on the person's bad day. So, you know, if I can get up with a Zimmer in the morning by myself and with a staff member helping, but then as the day goes on, I get quite tired and I need a hoist. Quite often the manual handling plan ended up saying that I need a hoist, which meant the person was having the hoist used with them in the morning as well. So they start to lose that ability of being able to do it in the morning. So, you know, think about that a little bit. Have you got care plans where this is an issue? Are there clients where, you know, we could be saying to, say, for example, if a manual handling assessor or an occupational therapist is doing your plans, can you please assess them or ensure that the plan is clear around carrying out a dynamic risk assessment and what the person can do on a good day and what the person can do on a bad day, rather than just providing a plan for the bad day, because that takes that little bit of opportunity away from the person when they can do more for themselves. And you know, as carers, we carry out dynamic risk assessments all the time. We always look at what can the person do, how they are feeling before we start to work with them to help them move and stuff. So just looking at those little things. Are our plans accurate? Are they giving the person the opportunity to move when they can? We do what is more convenient for us in our language. We've spoken about that. We've spoken about us doing too much. Building design and use, preventing free movement. So, you know, in some senses, so in services that actually do work out of a building, for example, like a daycare or sheltered housing, is something worth considering. How easy it is to move around my building, how easy it is for people to find their way, because that small thing can make the difference between the person wanting to leave where they're at and going out, or just staying where they're at because they're not sure they'll be able to make it back to the daycare room or their flat, so to speak. So thinking about that. But in a person's house, similarly, for example, quite often we'd find a person's house might be a bit cluttered, so they might not find things that they want access to, so they might quite often not do for themselves. Sometimes it could be as simple as helping put a couple of labels on, you know, cups, you know, tea, coffee, so the person kind of knows if they go into the kitchen where their cup is. and just little bits of help, and especially when our cognition is beginning to get challenged a little bit, just a little bit of help, prompt, clear my way a little bit, help me declutter a wee bit so I can see ways around, and it encourages me to move, and put a little bit of prompt if I need those prompts, so that I am comfortable doing things for myself. And sometimes it's just about communicating for independence, so it's like, instead of can you close my curtains, saying that question, why don't I do this one? And why don't I also show you a snazzy way of being able to do it with your stick, so that you don't have to wait for me to do it? And that's kind of communicating for independence, because you're giving the person an opportunity for how I can close my curtain myself, rather than somebody else doing that for me. So just a few thoughts. I mean, the other one that says we talk about safety and well-being, but actually we're causing harm. That one is a lot more reflective, and that's what I'm looking at quite often. Our reaction to a fall is what? Sit down, you're going to have a fall. We encourage the person to stay seated. We worry every single time the person's moving. But what does research tell us? The more the person moves, they maintain their balance, strength, and coordination, the lower is the chance that they're going to have a fall. The less a person moves, the less will be their confidence when they do go to move, and the less will be their strength and abilities. So when they do go to move, in a sense, we are actually ensuring a fall if we are not encouraging them to keep moving, to keep building a little bit of strength and their confidence, especially after they may have suffered a fall. So talking about that, we will I'll play another wee video here, and this is a care at home specific example where Jack is talking about doing some physical activities in a care at home setting, using, similar to Lynn's example, movement sticks, but she talks a lot more about how it's been for staff in terms of the culture and the service, and how staff have become a bit more aware of what's going on and how people can be helped. So hopefully have a listen. Hopefully you should hear that clearly. This one's a lot clearer than Lynn's video, hopefully.
Has it been really time consuming? Because we hear a lot how challenging it is with time.
Yeah,
Tell us a bit about that.
No, it hasn't. You're talking maybe 5-10 minutes to do the sticks, if you just kind of, and the more mobile Margaret is getting, the less time that we're needed to help her. So no, that was a big worry at first, but no, not now. I think we can manage it fine. Yeah.
Has everyone been on board?
Everybody, absolutely everybody. At first some of the carers were saying, oh, you're joking, but now I think they're all busy getting Margaret to do it, and they all quite enjoy it. So no, everybody's on board with it, even family.
Tell us about, are you noticing anything else when you're out, maybe seeing other people or other carers? Are they more aware of promoting movement?
We seem to be, we'll maybe go to somebody and they'll maybe say to me, we could do the exercises in here, they're more aware of it, or, so-and-so falls quite a bit, so we could maybe introduce that. So yeah, it's in the forefront of everybody's mind. Yeah.
And other than doing the sticks in the jar exercises, is there other things just day to day, like stirring tea or
get people
personal
involved
care
in the likes of their bedtime routine, or setting up for us coming in, or making their own cup of tea, going into the kitchen, helping to prepare breakfast, things like that. Simple things, I would never have thought we could have thought about extra things to do, but the wee bedtime routine that we always did, I thought Margaret could do this and take her time at doing it, and now she does it in no time at all.
Perfect. Simple video highlights so many things though, that just going along with that, that we do too much example as well. There's so much little things that we can get the person, encourage the person to start doing and taking a bit more control over her life. I mean, we don't have the time to show you it, but we made a series of videos at Margaret's time, and so there's a video Margaret herself talks about. I prefer life now the way it is because nobody ever made my bed the right way. So. And nobody knew that until the service started encouraging Margaret to do things, and then part of that was would you like to try and make your own bed? And Margaret's a lot happier, not so much because she can do more, but it's just because her bed's made the right way, the way she liked her pillows, not the way the carers thought her pillows should be. Small things, big difference. And that's what this slide talks about, the benefits that we get from being involved in our own care. The little bit of taking more control over my life means I'm thriving. I'm not just surviving. it's relevant and appropriate. It's your care. But when we do more, we are more independent, which gives us better mood, better confidence, better self-esteem, and it makes us less bored. And we feel less of a burden. We don't feel like the carer has to do everything for us. We are capable of doing things. And it also gives a sense of control. So if you wash me, we go at your pace. If I wash me, we go at my pace. So if, as a carer, you are able to set up my environment and let me wash, then I have a lot more control and I feel like I'm a lot more capable. Small things make a huge difference. And the best thing about it, like, saying earlier, it just sneaks that movement into your life. And the best movement is the movement that we don't know we are doing. And I'm going to hand back to Louise to discuss that a wee bit further with you.
Louise, we can't hear you. Are you the same, Anuj? Can't hear Louise.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, is your headset down? Your thingy. That's it. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thanks, Lisa. I was terrified there. Okay, so I was thinking in terms of if you work in care at home, there may well be somebody that you help get washed and dressed or have done or will in the future. If you're working in daycare services, might not be as pertinent. But what I really want you to think about is, and in the comments in the chat, there's been lots of chat about, from some people that they do too much because they have a lot of, there's an awful pressure and time, which we're very, very aware about. So if you're thinking about this, if you have a task to do, are there things that you can say before the task or during it or after it? So for example, if you're due to be at somebody's house at 8 o'clock, but the previous day you say, well, I'll be with you tomorrow at about 8 o'clock. And before I get there, could you, whatever it is, could you go through and get your clothes ready? Or could you, whatever it is, the people well, and you have the ideas. So we'd really like to think of your ideas about how to, as Anuj was saying, sneaking in a bit more movement into somebody's day when they're coming along to your service for whatever reason. Okay, so if we go on to the next one, and I think that gives you the ability to pop something into your telephone. Yes, so it's helping somebody to do as much as they can for themselves. And think about getting washed and dressed, if that's a task that you do with people. Or you can think about how could I help somebody to do even more than they can for themselves in the work that you do. So you can pop it into your phone and it'll pop up here, which is great.
Few comments coming in now. Give them a sponge when showering, lay clothes out for themselves, help to make dinner, ask them to make a start before the worker arrives. Making it fun, I think that's really important, so it doesn't feel like a chore. Giving them goals to aim for, choose their own clothes, help to set up for lunch.
Okay.
Putting music on, that's quite good. Encouragement to try. Yeah, I think that's really important. People maybe need that encouragement and motivation, don't they? And might be frightened or scared to make that movement or whatever if nobody's there. Setting the table, opening curtains themselves, setting up table for breakfast. So really important things to encourage people to do more from themselves, but really meaningful things too. It makes a difference to them.
Yeah, and certainly getting connected with their own life, like Margaret making her own bed or pulling her own curtains or whatever it is. So yeah, really good ideas. That's lovely. Thanks for that synopsis there, Linda. So many different things. It's fabulous. And yeah, lots too about people doing something while you're doing something else. So if we go on to the next one, because one of the things we talk about is meaningful connections, and obviously a connection that matters to people, that brings meaning and value. And that can be with people, it can be with any of the many things that you said brought you joy in life. And I noticed when I had a look there were people connecting with their faith or with prayer. So again, it can be something bigger than yourself that is a meaningful connection to you. It can be with nature, it can be with people and so on in your environment. So what's really nice with the work that you do is to look outside the four walls. If you're supporting somebody in their own home, what's in their community that they may have fallen out of the way of connecting with? If you're running, if you're working in a sheltered housing environment or a daycare centre, what's outside the four walls? So it can be that you can, depending on your role, to help somebody rekindle connections, or indeed it could be remind people or remind the family about connecting up with what's out there locally. And these sorts of things are so possible. I heard a lovely story recently about somebody who had, obviously a chap who was a great football fan, and through various health issues and so on, hadn't managed to go to a game or anything, but his care workers helped connect him with the local fans club. So he wasn't going to the game, but he was going down to a local pub to watch the game with a whole lot of others who were supporting the same team. And what a difference that made to his life. So there's lots of really good connections that can be made, reconnections, where somebody might not take part entirely as they may have done perhaps before their dementia developed or whatever, but can still enjoy and appreciate being connected with that meaningful connection for themselves. And of course, the more we're out and about as well, it adds to our health and well-being, and it gets us moving as well, all to the good. So we're going to have a listen to Alan here. Do hope this one works fine. And Alan is somebody who lives at home by himself. So let's hear what Alan has to say. It's nice to hear from people themselves.
So I'm here today with Alan Stephen, who's 86. And I was chatting with him earlier and thought that you might be interested to hear his thoughts about getting older and getting out and about. Let's go back a wee bit. And you were saying that way back, you were sitting at home in front of the telly and you thought, gosh, this isn't going to be good for me.
I was thinking to myself, you're just going to sit your boy. Get out there and do something. There's so many organisations that are looking for help. For goodness sake, let's see what I can do to keep me alive and to live my life.
Right, and to add to your life, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, again, there's a computer, but again, not everybody is savvy wise. Get the children to help you, but if you go online and just click on find out what organisations are looking for volunteering duties, etc. There's so many people, or so many organisations out there just looking for people to help. Even just an hour a day, to move around 2 months, so many things that you can do.
Right, right.
Good job, at your benefits. Well, that's a good question. I think it's extends my life. It keeps me interested in life in general. I just love meeting people, talking to people. It's good for me, and hopefully it's good for them.
Okay.
It's to encourage people to chat with one another. We're a huge species, and we want to use it.
Right. Okay, fantastic.
I think it's to try and it's easy just to sit in front of the TV and not move, but just even not for 5 minutes, just moving around, even maybe that your movement isn't too good, but if you're hanging onto chairs, just keep moving, keep joints moving. You don't have to join a gym to go and get fit, but just keep the limbs moving. It's so important.
Okay, and you can do that in your own house as well, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you can.
Yeah.
Me, that's the worst thing you can do. I can understand it. Loving family, they don't want to overextend their old folks, their exercises and things, but you have to keep moving, even if it's just sitting in a seat, waving your arms about. Just try and keep your joints moving. And families can overdo it. They think they're doing the good. And to me, it's doing the opposite.
Okay, so say to your family, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go through and get the cup of tea, and I'm going to, do as much as I can for myself.
Correct.
There you are. Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much for your thoughts on these things. It's really interesting to talk to you. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
So, and by the way, that website, Alice, ALISS, you can put in the postcode of anybody and it shows all of the different things that are like in 1 mile, 2 miles or 5 miles away from the person. And just coming back, as Alan was saying, like you can really get the sense that he gets a lot out of being out and about and volunteering and helping, and it adds meaning to his life. And all of us need opportunities to show people who we are and to feel good about ourselves. And I had a lovely experience up in Shetland before, where there was a daycare centre where a man with learning disability had just joined the daycare centre, and he had been living at home with his parents, who had both sadly died. And so he was coming along to the daycare centre, and he hadn't had the opportunity to contribute because he was often the recipient of care from people. So they worked really hard to think, how can we help him have a job here in the daycare centre? So they got one of these 1-cup dispensers, and his job was to go around, when it was time for a cup of tea or coffee, say, anyone want a cup of coffee? And he'd race over, make a cup of coffee and bring it back over. And had, he blossomed in terms of having a role to play and contributing to this new place and these new people that he was meeting. So consider where you're working. How can the people who are connected with your service feel that they're contributing, that you need their help? How would you be able to help me with this? Could you give a hand? Because we all like to do that. We all feel good about ourselves when we help somebody else. So one of the things about working with people, obviously, the people you support really, really well. You've got excellent relationships with them. But here's some extra tips about finding out what matters to people you support if it's somebody new. And I'm going to hand back to Anuj for this one. I think it's coming up on the next slide.
Thank you, Louise. So as Louise was saying, all these fab things starts by first knowing what does truly matter to the person. Because nobody wants to necessarily consistently do exercise, but everybody wants to do more of what they enjoy, what gives their life meaning, purpose, and fun. So it's about thinking about you have to think about, how can I simply find out what really matters to the people I support? So we're sharing a couple of examples from a site called Helen Sanderson Associates. And as I said, along with other things, we'll send the link for the site along with the slides when they are ready. But you can also just simply Google Helen Sanderson Associates and the site comes up. And they're a cracking site for person-centered thinking tools and person-centered practices. All tools that they've got are available to download for free. And so you can just download them and implement them in your care plans if you so wished. And they're very, very simple tools. And there's usually like a wee video attached to every tool from the experience of the person that tool's been used with, or as the staff member who's used the tool explaining how that tool can be used simply to add value, to understand more about the person. So this is like a very simple tool, the good day, bad day tool. Simply asking the person, what makes a good day for you? What's a day to remember? What makes a bad day? What's a day to forget? And then a wee plan around what will it take to have more good days and less bad days. And I'll go back to saying, quite often staff will say, but we necessarily don't have the time to support them to do the things that make a good day for them. But that's not the point. We have to start with knowing what matters to the person. In a sense, our role when we don't have the time to do things ourselves is to network, to join the dots. But you can't join the dots without knowing what truly matters to the person. So simple tools like this can be a big benefit in starting to understand that. And this other tool, what's working, not working, and it's a similar tool to Good Day, Bad Day, but slightly more elaborate because it includes from the point of view the person, the family, and the staff. What is working in your life right now? What is not? And now this is not a review document, so focus on in terms of meaningful activity, in terms of enjoyment in life, what is working and what is not working. Asking the family what used to work for them, what works for them now, and what isn't working for them. Because the not working is as important, because giving person more of the opportunity for things they don't enjoy is a short way of destroying rapport with the person. So, and there's also the staff aspect. So quite often we talk about Betty gets on with Jean like a house on fire, but Margaret can't get a single word out of Jean. Now, it's not usually because Betty's a cracking carer and Margaret's a poorer one. It's just Betty's probably saying a thing or two that floats Margaret's boat, Jean's boat, and Margaret isn't, or Margaret's saying a thing or two that isn't. So, but if they can both sit together for 2 minutes and put in what's working, not working, in this tool, it helps develop rapport for not just Betty and Margaret, but for every single person who's going to be supporting this individual. So very simple tools, but they can give you some real cracking pointers. And what they are good for is a working tool. So it's not about having a perfect tool because it has to be up to date, otherwise it's pointless. But that also means you can start with it with pretty much blank. And then as you find out, as you know, as you observe, you keep adding to them. The key is to have them in place. So you're regularly focusing on what matters to this person. Why am I doing this? Why am I talking about this? So even to understand how can you make that conversation a meaningful one so that it's not just a carer there to do my care, it's somebody using every moment they've got with me to make a meaningful connection. And one of the other things that works, so like I used to manage a care at home service, I became a reablement service. And we thought we did a cracking job, but we did a lot of training where we're telling staff to encourage the person to do more for themselves while trying to not do a lot themselves. But still, the relationship, the power was all with us because we were choosing to how much help to give or how much help to withhold. To build relationships better and to get more out of people, what works best is actually partnership working. You do this, I'll do that, and the work will get done. And we might have a couple of minutes to have fun afterwards. You grab the cup, I'll grab the coffee. So because in partnership working, the power is shared equally in the relationship rather than us choosing to withhold that power with us and choosing not to do for the person or choosing to do everything for the person. So think about it a little bit more in terms of partnership working. How can we do a lot more of you do this and I'll do that? Adapting the task. So adapting the task is about how can we make the task change so that it fits what I am able to do for myself. So if you're talking about a one-to-one basis in a care at home situation, for example, it might be you're doing somebody's personal care, and that the person, if they're having a wash, they might have a difficulty with their balance, but if they're sat down, they can wash themselves. So just knowing that and supporting the person onto their shower chair or onto the stool in front of their wash hand basin if they're having a wash, and then leaving them to carry out a wash themselves, is you adapting that task of getting washed to give them the maximum chance at being independent, doing the things that they're doing. And if you think of it like chunks, every task is like a chunk of work, and what chunk can I do myself? So in this example, the chunk I can do for myself is I can wash myself if I'm in front of the stool, but can I do a little bit more? Can I take my clothes out of the wardrobe? So how can we add, if you give me the most of the opportunity to do what I can for myself and then start adding another chunk? Can I lay out my toiletries myself? So little things, and then you can build upon the person's independence and giving them more opportunity to do more for themselves. And it is partly also important. So if you look at the bottom image here, it's about the challenge scale balance. So it's partly also important because as I become more independent, I need to be doing more because otherwise what we're doing doesn't present me with enough of a challenge. So I can easily start to get bored. So if you see, when the challenge of an activity increases in my life, as my skills are improving, I'm focused, I'm happy, I'm in flow. If the activity is too challenging and I don't have the skill for it, I would be anxious. If the activity is far too easy for me because it's not giving me a lot of challenge, but my skills improved a lot now, then I'm bored. So looking at that, adapting that task, adapting the activity so that as my abilities improve, the challenge of the activity improves along with it. So quite often I give an example of one of my staff used to, in like a, so a similar example would be like in a daycare setting, like just playing a game of Skittles. And for the service user who was fairly mobile, he would either make the ball smaller, harder, heavier, and it would make the distance bigger. So there's still a challenge for them. For people who were chair bound, they would roll from their chair. If they couldn't even get their back of the chair to bend down and roll, he'd cut a drain pipe in half, which made a gutter. So the person just had to stretch and put the ball on top of the gutter. So, but what meant was it adapted the one activity for every single person with every single ability in the room to be able to take part in the activity and to be able to compete for the same prize. So think about that. How can we muck about with tasks in what you do, where you work, and what tasks you're doing with people, so to give them the maximum chance of doing more for themselves and having that little bit of achievement every time they manage, but giving them the just right challenge so they do accomplish it most of the time, not all of the time because that's too easy, but most of the time. So it keeps me engaged, keeps me wanting to do. Good, better, best is a similar way of looking at that. So I was talking about improving the challenge as my ability improve and giving me more opportunities. So it always starts with the basics. I should always get to choose what I want to wear. But it'd be better if I could then get on to my own wardrobe and get my own clothing. And you might have to help me declutter my wardrobe so I can actually look at the 6 things I wear rather than the 30 things that are in there that I'll never touch, that keep me away from those 6 things. So, but it'd be better if I could get to the wardrobe and get my own clothes, and it would be even better as I become more independent that I get myself to rest and only need a hand from you when I need it. Similarly, I should be able to choose what I want to drink, but it's better if I can, if I can add a bit of it myself, like stick my coffee in, stick my sugar in, but it'd be even better if I can make it and someone takes it back. It'd be even better if you can find me a way, like a cup with a lid, so that I can take it back myself, so you don't have to be there at all to help me with that task. So just small things to think about as you progress with the person.
Great.
And now
Okay.
it's back to you, Louise.
Yep. Now, what we're going to do now is just have a small little section on tracking improvement, and then we'll come to a bit of planning for yourselves. So we're on the home straight, so to speak. So one of the things is, how do you know that you're making an improvement for somebody? And earlier on we heard about Chick. So the number of tokens that went into the jar was a sheer indicator. It was a really good way of tracking that this is improving. He went with 5 tokens in the jar to 8 to 15 to 25. So that was a really good improvement. And perhaps, if you were working with somebody like you're working with Mrs. Brown, and you're encouraging her to open her own door before you arrive. So, when you leave the last house, you ring her phone, let her ring 3 times and put it down, and she knows you're on her way. And how often does she manage to open her own door for you? So again, you could track something like that. So on the next page, we have part of a well-being questionnaire that we oh, that's not, oh, this is, yeah, that's one. So for example, you could ask 1, 2, 3 or 4 people, or you could ask everybody who attends your daycare centre or whatever. I move around as much as I'm able, and staff encourage me to do this, and see, what is that? Never, rarely, sometimes. You could ask people individually. You could stick that up on the board, and people could put a mark in it, and that would give you a baseline to say, okay, well, if we want to improve this, what can we do? And working with whoever the people who come to your service are, and say, well, how will we improve this, and so on. And another one that Anij mentioned earlier is about going outside, and that's huge, because quite often, as our health disimproves, as we lose abilities, we're indoors all the time. And for most Scottish people, or like me, I'm Irish as well, that the outdoors, and do you get a chance to feel the wind in your hair? Do you get a chance to feel the rain? Or are you always in a hermetically sealed, very, very, very warm place? So that'd be a really interesting one to ask. And particularly if you're in a daycare centre or whatever, because if folk have very limited opportunities to move in a small flat somewhere and come to your place, it's fantastic. It's much bigger, lots of places to move. And do you get the opportunity to go outside as well? Okay, and then the next couple of examples here, say in sheltered housing, or if you're working with one person, here's John, and he's tracking how many steps he does each day. And this week he did 7,200 over the week. And you can see there's a couple of opportunities. Well, he's going to go dancing, he's going to clean his room, you know, so there's lots of ideas about how to track these improvements. And then the well-being cat on the right-hand side, where a different person maybe each week or gets the cat and goes and takes photos on their phone of them doing fun things with the cat, and that encourages people to get out and about and go to new places. So again, that could be a way of tracking and helping people to add a bit of fun and purpose and movement and so on. And the next one again is you can, you know, if you're working with somebody individually, you can get very cheap step counters where somebody's doing, say, 1,200 steps on a Monday, 1,400 on Tuesday because they've gone outside. Thursday, they're feeling tired, so it's dropped down. But this can be really motivating for people. And this is one of the examples where you've long gone. You've done your work with them and you're away. But because you're encouraging them and they know you're going to ask them, how did you get on yesterday? How many steps did you do? And so on, that encourages people. And it's really important to remember that you are so valued by the people you support. You've got fantastic relationships with people. People listen to you. And if you are talking with people about the importance of movement and stretching and so on, they're going to listen. And actually on that note, because we've been sitting for some time, so wherever you are in the country, just stand up and have a wee stretch, because again, we want to practice what we preach. So really nice to have a little bit of a stretch as we go in our own day. So good. Okay, we're on to the home stretch now. So 2 more slides, I think, Anish, that's you.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise. So we've shared a lot of information with you, but where do you start? Where do you start making your first step? So most importantly, start very, very small. One person, one idea. Don't overcook it. Sometimes that's what we do with improvement. We kind of get motivated, but we start to take on a lot more than we can choose. So start really small. Most importantly, everybody in that person's life has to help keep them on track. You know, so if it is just a home care client and it's just a carer and family visiting them, then it's so much more important that family and the carer are both on board, because every single person has to be saying the same thing the same way, encouraging the person to do the same thing. Family have to be on board and understand why you're encouraging them to find out what matters to them and do a bit more of, because the person needs that encouragement. Everybody in their sphere talking about the same thing and encouraging them to achieve their goal. And the one that Louise was talking about, very important to know, have a plan for how will I know my plan's actually working? How will I track improvement? What will I do if I have a wee hiccup? And how will we celebrate success? Because it's that success that the momentum for the person achieving more in their life is built on. Have simple things to track, so you can say to the person, you're doing a cracking job because, you know, like Louise said, you know, because last week you walked 2,000 steps and this week you walked 2,500. So that's an amazing achievement. You're on a crack and roll. That part is very important, figuring out how will I track where I'm at and where I've got to. And some simple hints, tips and thoughts, you know, I've mentioned that word, sneaking movement in, help by stealth. That's, you know, the best movement is, like I say, the one that we don't know we are doing. So what could I be doing to just sneak movement in? You know, so like walking through the kitchen when the meal's being prepared, instead of staying in the living room, staying on that chair in front of the TV. You know, can we encourage the person to come and give us a hand? You know, the other example I mentioned earlier, figuring out ways for the person to get up to open the front door for the visitors, carers, and families. You know, for us also, you know, like little things like knowing how much somebody can do and then making sure if they can only walk 3 steps every single time we're providing them care, they get that opportunity to walk those 3 steps. So they're not losing any of the ability they've already got. So we've got something to build on regularly. lots and lots of your examples kind of go along with this. I was saying earlier, you can do a lot of magic with a simple balloon, putting on the power of music. So many, the music impacts on so many parts of your brain that it's the last thing to go, even when we start to have a lot of cognitive issues. So even simply the act of finding out what the person really enjoys and sticking the music on when you get in to do the task, it's very hard to not move to music that you love. So, but thinking about that, thinking about using simple balloon games, you've seen a couple examples of movement sticks. So if you could only spare 2 minutes during the visit, especially you can do a bit of, if you give me a hand, we'll get done, and then we'll have a couple of minutes to play with the fun sticks. Do that, and then have something simple like ball games or balloon games on it, or even sneaking movement in by when we're doing, when we're getting dressed, we kind of have a habit of, we'll pull up the pants and we'll pull up the trousers and we'll do that all together. But simply encouraging the person to, pull their pants up, sit back down again and pull their trousers up. That's squeezed in a stick to stand that you didn't have before. Like I was saying earlier also, like just getting the person the opportunity to stretch into their clothes rather than us pulling them on. Little things, like Tesco keeps telling us, every little helps. So think about that. And like I was saying earlier as well, in another examples, community connections and partnerships are a great way of sneaking movement into somebody's life. So help them network, find them ways, go into Alice, see what's on in Alice, look at what's on in your community. And it's about helping join the dots for the person and their family. If you know what matters to them, and if you can give them simple pointers of how they could go and get more of that connection, then that connection will squeeze in a lot of movement, but it'll also enhance their mental well-being. It'll make their world bigger. Think of that. And then simple things like create curiosity. What's making me want to look outside the window? Even a stick-on bird feeder on my window means the birds are coming to the bird feeder, and that makes me go to the window a lot more than it did before. Small things, big difference. Daycare, like a lot of services have found a lot of success simply by, even if they were doing things that involve sitting down, like dominoes, jigsaws, card games, they would just put it on different tables in different rooms. So it sneaks the movement into, because the person has to go and sit down to play one game and then stand up and go to the other room to play a different game. So, simple things, sneaking movement in. But this promotion of well-being and moving more often works only well if it becomes a way of thinking, not just a way of doing, not just a way improvement ideas. So think about how can we change the entire culture. We're always focused on how do we improve well-being for our staff, for the people we support, so that we've all got a happy, fulfilled, and more content life. And on that happy note.
Okay, so listen, we know that you already do fabulous stuff. We had huge examples of that in the chat and already. But we'd like you to think about if there was one thing, as Anuj was saying, with one person or one, group of people you work with or whatever, that you think that you'd like to try out differently after this workshop. We'd love to hear what that might be. And you can pop it into your phones just now. I'll just have to get back to that page on my phone, but anything that you'd like to try. And that's all about more movement, connection, and people doing more of what matters to them. And you can be as specific as you like. That's lovely. Somebody's just ordered jumbo lolly sticks for the team.
I was looking at that one as well. It's fabulous. Fabulous.
I love that. And do you know what? I just love that ability of you guys. You just spot something. I'll have a bit of that. I'll do that and make it work already. You have ingenious ideas. You as I was saying earlier, you have fantastic relationships to people, and your influence on people to keep moving as much as they can, to encourage people to stay at home, living at home as long as is possible, is just amazing. So we're really going to enjoy watching or hearing about the different things that you're doing here and the different ideas. There's another lovely one. Put the tea further away. I like that one. So yes, because we're, and you can also talk to families as well, because families are very inclined to say, "Mom, sit there. I'll give you the zapper. There's your cup of tea. There's your glasses. There's, don't move." And it's educating the family as well, saying, "Well, if you want your mom to stay as independent as possible, when you're visiting, help her to move as much, walk through, help her to do things, because that will really help her to stay independent, living at home, and improves health and well-being. So many different fantastic things. Walk to the end of the park and back during Wednesday's lunch hour. And somebody thinking about reward systems. Yeah, that's really interesting about daycare, transferring from wheelchairs to seats. And yeah, I remember one daycare centre saying to me, I visited them afterwards, and they were just amazing, because they said, people used to come off the bus, and because of nice people, they'd help take somebody's coat and hang it up and everything. And I thought, hang on, why are we taking people's coats? So they designed the place where people could hang up their own coats and their own handbags and so on. And they were worried because a lot of people had cognitive issues, and would they remember what they were doing and so on. And they were just so pleased when the people learned a new skill, and they found that one of the older people would help another one to find out where their hook was, and so on and so forth. And everybody felt better about themselves. And so again, it's looking at where you work and thinking, where are there opportunities to sneak in a bit where people are doing a bit more for themselves and are helping each other.
I think we'd love you to keep adding your ideas. We're also happy if you want to leave now and have 4 minutes back in your life. We're also happy to answer any questions, so you can raise your hands. If you give us a couple of minutes, we'll be able to enable everybody's cameras and mics in case you want to ask. Speak to us, and just give me 2 texts. So I've taken the slides off now, I think, so we can all see each other. And if you give us a few minutes, we'll be able to enable the mics and the cameras as well, in case you had any questions or if you wanted to say anything at all.
And if you're heading away just now, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you, and hope the rest of the day is good for you. If you used Teams before, up at the top there's a hand like that, and if you click on it, it'll kind of put your hand up, which so we'll know that oh, somebody's put their hand up. Excellent. And that's Heather. Heather, would you like to, Anna, to be able to?
Just 1 second, Louise.
There's lots of background gubbins, but we'll get your mic on in a second.
It's lovely when the computer forgets within a few seconds who you are, and you have to tell it again who you are. Oh, Louise, you might have to do this because it's giving me the same issues as yesterday again.
Okay, it says Heather's mic is on. Heather, do you want to try talking with, see whether we can hear you? Oh, no.
I've just changed Heather to presenter in the hope that would
fix
it.
Yes,
can you hear me now?
That's
Hi,
it.
Heather.
Oh yes, yeah, here we go.
Thanks, Lisa.
Hi. It's just to say I benefited a lot from today. I have an 86-year-old mum, and I'm going through quite a lot of problems with her, and I have been for about 4 months now, coming out of the house and joining things and being more confident. And it's given me a lot to think about. Although I work at a daycare centre with adults, I do have an elderly mum. So I came on for it for that, as well as my general work. And thank you. I've benefited from a lot today.
Oh, thanks, Heather. That's really sweet of you to come
Fabulous.
on and tell us that. And yes, I mean, the thing is, this isn't about our work. It's about us, isn't it? It's about our parents, our older relatives, and in fact, it's about ourselves, because with a bit of luck, we will all age as well. And it's about living, isn't it? So thanks for that. That's really good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
you.
Heather.
Thanks again. Thank you.
Anyone else want to put up their hand or pop in?
Thanks, everybody. Comments and feedback.
That's great, and thanks for the mention about the mobile phones and the QR codes. Yeah, it's a bit complicated, but it's nice. It's really nice that it worked. And of course, we wish that the the video sound had been better, but we'll be able to share those with you. So thanks very much, everybody. I think we're kind of at 3:30 now anyway. So all the best. Lovely to have you with us.
We will send you all the slides. We will send you a recording of this meeting so that you can use that for training purposes in the future, if you so prefer, the slides and the recording. And we will send you links to all the videos that have been shared today and the other things, such as like the simple ways to tracking progress document that Louise and I developed, that Louise showed you a couple of questions from. Gives you lots of ideas about how you can track improvement. We'll send you all of that along with the slides and stuff once they are ready. So if you just leave it with us for 2-3 weeks, you should have it by that time.
Okay, so I'm just about to end the meeting now. So cheery bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot for coming. Oh, we've got a hand go up.